Hi everybody, welcome back to the Sydney Stoma channel. My name's Chris and today we're going to be talking about the positives and negatives of having a colostomy. But firstly, I hope you're all well, I hope you're all staying safe under the current conditions that we're all going through. So yeah, as I mentioned, it's the pros and cons, or the positives and the negatives of having a colostomy. There are different types of ostomies. There's ileostomy, urostomy and colostomy. I'm only going to be talking about my positive and negatives about having a colostomy. I won't be able to comment on ileostomies or urostomies because I don't have one. So with my videos, I rarely do any prep work. I have an idea and I just turn my phone camera on and normally just go for it. So I've got the feeling this video could go on for a little while, but we'll see how it goes. So yeah, as I said, let's talk about the positives and the negatives of having a colostomy. Which should we start with? Should we start with the positives or the negatives? Let's get the negatives out of the way. Let's start with the negatives of having a colostomy. So what I'm going to start with is actually what I call the short-term negatives. And those short-term negatives come when you've just had this surgery. So some of the short-term negatives that will fade in time or will go away in time are the first one is generally adapting to life after surgery. Is finding what works for you, finding a routine that's right for you, finding what's comfortable for you. And that's quite a journey when you're fairly new to having a colostomy. You can go online and read other people's or hear other people's reviews and thoughts about the process, and it can give you an idea, but until you've actually got one, you won't realise what sort of impact it will have on your life. So adapting to life can be a short-term negative, but once you're comfortable with it, the adapting part of it kind of goes away and it just becomes part of your routine, and it is certainly not a negative. The other negative that's a short-term negative after surgery is the pain that you will go through. It is really painful, the recovery process, but it certainly was for me. So I've had what they call a Barbie butt, so I've completely had my rectum removed and that's now all healed up. So the term Barbie butt comes from, if we've all generally seen what a naked Barbie looks like, or a naked action man. They've just got the line, haven't they, where down their bum. So that's it. So you will hear the term Barbie butt or Ken butt or action man butt, whichever one. So it's gone, it's been completely removed. So when they did my surgery, some people have had them sewn up, but certainly in the UK it's packed, and the wound has to be changed almost daily or every other day, where they take the dressing out, put more dressing in, and over time that huge hole, and it is huge, I've got photographs of it, it's huge, gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So by packing it, heals from the inside up, which is a really good way of healing. But boy, is it painful when they change those dressings in the early stages. You do need some quite strong pain meds. You do have to have a nurse come to your home and change that dressing. That's in the UK, and that's what I went through. I also had a vacuum pump attached, so it creates a tight seal over the bottom area, and you carry around this big pump that's just pulling out any nastiness all the time. Worked really well, really effective piece of kit. But yeah, those dressing changes are epically painful for the first few weeks. Once the hole starts to heal and it's lifting up and healing upwards and the hole gets smaller, that pain massively reduces. But certainly for the first couple of weeks, that pain is pretty epic. But it's only a short-term pain, isn't it? It's not going to be forever. It's only for a few weeks. So don't worry about it too much. Yes, it will hurt. There's no kidding, that really is a painful process, but it's just short term, isn't it? It's not going to be going on forever. Also, you've got your stomach wound as such, so you've got your stitches down your abdomen or staples. I opted for stitches, I don't like staples. So you've got that running down your abdomen, and you've got the internal pain as well. That's not too bad, but yeah, you've got pain in this area, you've got pain in your rectum area, but it's just a short-term negative of having stoma surgery. So yeah, it's uncomfortable for a while, but it's only short-term. Also short-term, you may suffer with leaking. That comes back to the adapting to life with a stoma. You could have some leaking going on while you're just adjusting to it, finding the right bag that suits you, and that can take a few months to get there, maybe even longer. But if you think about how long we're on the planet for, it's a very small amount of time, really. So they're just short-term negatives that I would say. They're the only short-term negatives. It's just adapting, changing your lifestyle, finding a bag that works for you, And once you've got through that process, happy days. And you can always try other bags even in the future. You can swap and change, find what's right for you. So short-term negatives. So let's have a look at the longer term negatives of life with a colostomy. You can certainly suffer with sore skin underneath your stoma bag, so underneath the base plate. The base plate is this part here. That's the base plate, and you know that's a piece of plastic that is over your skin with a tight air seal. It can create skin problems because the skin can't particularly breathe very well, so it can create skin problems. So you have to be aware of your skin, and you've got to look after your skin. I did an ostomy skincare video, it's worth a watch. Have a little look at that, how I've reduced the skin problems I was having. I do also suffer with psoriasis, so any area that gets hot or sweaty can aggravate the psoriasis as well. But you've got to look after the skin. So it is a negative, and it's a negative that will stay with you generally all the time. But if you stay on top of your skincare, you can certainly reduce those skin issues. And there's lots of people with stomas, ostomies that have very little to no skin issues. So you've got to look after your skin. It's something you've got to be conscious of all the time. So it's certainly not a short term. It's going to be with you for the life, well, for your life if you have a permanent stoma like I do. So look after your skin. That's definitely a con, is you've got to spend some time on your skin. However, I also use skincare time as a bit of relaxation time. Certainly in the evenings, I do like a long hot bath. And after I get out of the bath, I spend some time on my skin. I use barrier creams, rubbing that in. And I use that as a little bit of private time or quiet time, almost meditation time of just rubbing that cream into the skin, looking after the skin, leaving the bag off to air. So getting some air around your stoma skin really does help look after the skin as well. And just I use it as a bit of quiet time in the evening, which is quite nice. But you don't have to do that every single time you change an ostomy bag. Just in the evenings, I generally do that and really get the cream on, the barrier creams, which is in my ostomy skin video. So yeah, it is a negative skin issues, but if you look after your skin, you can certainly reduce those negative issues around your skin. Another negative that will stay with you for the duration of your stoma or your life is wind, farting. So colostomies, ileostomies, they all do it, they all fart. You have no control over that, none whatsoever. So before, when you had that lovely muscle that was in your bum and you could feel a fart coming in an uncomfortable time, you could kind of hold that in. You can no longer do that with a colostomy. And sometimes it will fart and nobody will know, and other times people hear it. And it's up to you how you deal with that. I'm a man, and men are all kids, boys at heart, and we still find farts funny. So a lot of the times I can laugh it off, and I can get other people start laughing and find it quite amusing. But it can be embarrassing. It can be awkward. I've been sat in quite important meetings at work. Only one person is talking, and Sydney Stoma decides to let out a ripper. It is embarrassing. I do feel myself going a little bit red, and everybody, if they don't know you've got a stoma, they all give you that look of, what on earth are you doing? I just put my hand up and just say, sorry about that, got stoma, got no control, and then everybody's fine. They just go, oh, okay, and we carry on with the meeting. But it is embarrassing if you're sitting in a doctor's surgery or waiting room, or you're in a queue somewhere and it's quite quiet and your stoma decides to let out a ripper. Can be embarrassing, but you can turn it into a positive as well. It can start good conversations about stoma and educating people on stomas. So yeah, I've put it in the negative bracket. I'd also put it in the positive bracket as well, but it is something that you have to get used to. Sometimes you can feel the gas coming, and you can put your hand over it and try and muffle that sound. But if you don't know that gas feeling's coming and it lets one out, yeah, it can be a bit embarrassing, really. So yeah, that's a negative, certainly. Another negative are people's perceptions, really. A lot of people in this day and age really still think that stomas are quite dirty, quite nasty. Pooing out your stomach seems atrocious to some people. And that's just something you have to deal with, and we have to educate people. We don't have to ram it down their throats. I'm not into ramming that down people's throats about information, but if it comes up in conversation, then I certainly talk about it. But people's perceptions are still quite negative about stomas. If you're on a beach and you've got your colostomy bag is on show, do expect people to give you strange looks. Some people even give you dirty looks. But most of that is ignorance, lack of knowledge, and you do kind of get used to it. It's not too bad, but you will get glancing looks. Children certainly look at it. I have had kids ask me what it is, and I explain it to them. Sometimes the parents tell them not to be rude and drag them away, but I always say, no, let me explain it. It might help them. And kids are quite receptive to it. The kids are quite interested and they will listen. And what a great time is to educate kids, so when they're growing up, they don't see it as a negative. It's mainly adults and older adults that kind of have strange views about a colostomy or seeing a colostomy bag. So yeah, people's perceptions can be a negative. You can get negative comments, but it's just about educating people. And sometimes I can't be bothered to educate people. If someone makes a stupid comment, I just can't even be bothered. It doesn't bother me in any way, but it is a negative. If you decide to use disabled toilets and you come out and you look normal, I mean, I don't like that word, looking normal, but someone will see you walk out of a disabled toilet and make a comment about why you're in there. I've had a few of those, but disabled toilets are generally bigger, they have more room, and we need a bit more room to get things out. Trying to use a cubicle in a public toilet, it's not easy, and a lot of the time they're filthy. Certainly in the UK, a lot of public toilets are horrendous. So get yourself, in the UK, a radar key, which gives you access to a lot of disabled toilets. So just Google radar key if you're in the UK. And a lot of disabled toilets are locked. You need a radar key. So if you've got a disability, you can get a radar key and use disabled toilets. So yeah, people's perceptions, they see you as looking normal. They don't see your illness. They don't see your disability. And they can certainly make comments coming out of a disabled loo. But don't let them hurt you. Don't let that bother you. It has bothered me in the past. I did have quite a nasty comment from somebody, and it did upset me, but it doesn't anymore. I've moved on from that, but it's still a negative. So yeah, people's perceptions of colostomies, ileostomies are still quite wrong, really. So just gently educate people where you can. Like I say, don't ram it down people's throats, but just educate people. My final con is going to be leaking. Now, we need to talk about leaking a little bit. I don't really have leaking issues. I did. It was definitely a short-term negative. I did have leaking in the early days. Once my stoma settled from surgery, it did change in shape and it got smaller. And because it got smaller, it was almost flush with my skin. It didn't stick out very far like it did straight after surgery because it was swollen. And that was causing the poo to go underneath the barrier, out the side, onto my clothes, and that was going on for quite a while. And it is upsetting and it's quite distressing, and I was working at the time and I was very conscious. I wear white shirts for work and I was very conscious of leaking and the smell. And it took me a while to adapt to leaking and trying to stop leaking, but what I really needed to do was change my bag. So if you are suffering with leaking, just get in contact with your stoma team. I don't know why I left it so long to get in contact with them, and then I changed from flat base bags to the convex bags, and I've never had leaking since. So it is a negative. It was in the short term. I've still put it in the long term, but it's been a long time, probably well over a year, that I've had a leaky bag. I never get any leaks at night time. I sleep on my side, I can sleep on my front. I haven't had a leak at night time since the early days of having a stoma. So it is still on there as a negative, but it's still it's a short-term negative and a long-term. But if you are suffering with leaking, get on places like YouTube, go and speak to your stoma team and get that sorted, and it can be sorted. However, if you have got really bad skin, that does affect the way that your bag will stick to your skin. If your skin is really upset, it can get weepy, which will affect the adhesion of the bag, which will cause the bag to lift, which is going to cause leaking. So you've got to stay on top of your skincare. That's an absolute must, and that really will reduce any leaking. But it's not massively common leaking, but it's not common for me. It may be for others, but for me, it isn't a common occurrence. I haven't had a leak for a long time. So look after your skin is definitely key, and make sure you've got the right stoma bag, and that will massively reduce leaking and potentially stop leaking altogether. So that was all my negatives of having a colostomy. So let's have a look at the positives. Let's have a good old look at the positives. My positive list is probably going to be a lot bigger than my cons. So let's go through the positives. Let's start with stress reduction. One of the positives of having a colostomy is stress reduction. Let me give you a little bit of a backstory. This is where I said this video could go on for a little while. So I suffered with I still suffer with Crohn's disease, and I suffered terribly with perianal abscesses and fistulas in the anal anus region. I suffered really horrendously with those, and I was having so many surgeries a year. It was just obscene. I ended up knowing the anaesthetists by name. I was such a regular in hospital, having operations on draining abscesses, trying to heal fistulas, etc. And the damage that those fistulas and abscesses did to my rectum was just horrendous. So it's destroyed my rectum muscle to the point where I had pretty much zero bowel control, really. And that was quite horrendous. I was still working full time, and working full time with zero bowel control was just unreal. Not ashamed to admit that I had to use adult incontinence products like adult nappies. The job I was doing is very front facing. I teach. I'm not a school teacher, but I do teach and do training, and I have a class of 18, 20 students, and wearing an adult nappy in that environment was not great. It certainly wasn't ideal. But I carried on working. I didn't let it stop me working. I didn't let it stop me doing what I love doing. So that caused an awful amount of stress. So just going to work was stressful. Just going out was stressful. Going out with the wife and kids was stressful. I needed to know where all the public toilets were. I needed to make sure I had lots of supplies with me. It was so stressful. Just going to the toilet in my own home was stressful, because quite more often than not I had open wounds where I'd had surgery. I had fistula tracts that were open, and trying to keep that all clean was really difficult, and it was such a stressful time. And by the time spent in the bathroom was epic. I could be in there for absolutely ages. So it was stressful having all that going on, and then having the stress just seems to make things worse. It seemed to make Crohn's flares worse. It probably brought on Crohn's flares. So that was horrendous. So my colostomy was born through my decision. I went through years of the abscesses, the fistulas, the surgeries, the having constant accidents, and in the end it was my decision. It was never forced on me to have a stoma. I just said to my said to my medical team one day, I said, enough's enough, get it all out, give me a colostomy, let's see how we get on. I knew it wasn't going to be a miracle cure. I knew I could still have issues. So my stoma was born in 2017. I haven't been in hospital once since, which is fantastic. So stress reduction is massive since I've had a colostomy. All that stress is gone. I don't have to stress about the bathroom. I don't have to stress about having an accident at work, or when I'm out, or when I'm out with my family. I don't have to stress about how we plan a holiday, what we're going to take, etc. All that stress is gone, which is just a huge relief. And it's enabled me to get on with my life, or get my life back is more the point. I did try and get on with my life, but I didn't have a great quality of life. So I've got my life back. It's definitely been a life changer. So stress reduction is massive. Definitely a big pro for me, stress reduction. So that leads on to a reduction in symptoms as another positive. So my Crohn's symptoms have massively reduced since I've had all of my rectum removed. I haven't had any abscesses, no fistulas, and they were the main problem with my Crohn's. I did have issues with my terminal ileum having strictures, so I have had terminal ileum issues, and I have had to have surgery around the terminal ileum area. So the terminal ileum is where the small bowel meets the large bowel. I don't know what that hand action is, but it's where the small bowel meets the large bowel. Was having strictures in there, so I have had surgery there, but I haven't had that for many years. So it was all mainly in the rectum area. All those symptoms have gone. I've not had any symptoms since I've had all of that rectum removed. Would I say I'm cured of Crohn's? No, certainly not. But do I have any symptoms? Rarely. I can still get minor flares in my stomach, but it's rare. So massive reduction in symptoms. So that leads on to my next positive, which is a massive reduction in hospital visits. I never go to the hospital anymore. The only time I go is probably once a year for a chat with my stoma team or my Crohn's team to discuss how I'm getting on, but I'm getting on great. So massive reduction in hospital visits, massive reduction, well in fact zero now surgeries. I'd say in about 6 years I had 20 surgeries, which is huge. I haven't been in the hospital since I had my stoma in 2017. So a reduction in hospital visits, which means I work more, not in hospital as much. I'm not putting the stress and worry and upset on my wife and the kids when I'm in hospital, so it benefits them as well. So that's a positive, that it's improved my family's life as well. So reduced hospital visits, massive pro. My hospital became like a second home. I was just there constantly. So yeah, massive reduction in hospital visits. So that moves on to, yeah, as I've said, no more surgeries, so that's a pro. The next pro is it's easy to clean, it's easy to change. As I've already mentioned, bathroom time was epic. Trying to keep the rectum area clean was just a nightmare because of open wounds or fistulas, abscesses, soreness, having seats and drains, trying to keep those all clean. It was just a nightmare. So now with a stoma, they're so easy to change, so easy to clean, super hygienic. I can see exactly what's going on with my stoma. Whereas before, when you're trying to clean your bum, that's an awful difficult place to try and clean because you can't see it unless you start trying to use mirrors. So I can see my stoma, I can clean it, I can keep an eye on it, I can check on it, etc. It's lovely and hygienic. It's always lovely and clean after a change, and it's easy to clean, easy to change. Takes a bit of getting used to, but once you're used to your stoma, easy peasy. So yeah, another positive, easy to clean, nice and hygienic, which means there's also reduction in bathroom time. If I needed to change a stoma in a hurry, I think I can do it in under a minute. But if I'm doing a good bit of skin prep time, then it's going to take anywhere between 3 and 5 minutes, which isn't a long time anyway. So yeah, reduction in bathroom time. So it also has given me a boost in confidence. Is my next positive is confidence. My confidence has just surged since having a colostomy because it's given me freedom back. It's given me my life back to do all the things that I enjoy doing. So my confidence has gone up. My confidence at work went up. I don't have to worry about having an accident. And I know that I can go out for the day and have confidence in that. And you can change your colostomy bag pretty much anywhere. Say for example, you're on a beach. You can sit there on the beach and change it. You don't have to go wandering off to find a local toilet. You can just sit there on the beach and do it. You can do it in your car. I did a video of changing a stoma bag whilst walking in the woods, and I changed the stoma bag whilst actually walking. I didn't even stop. It was just an example, really. I'm not saying we should be doing that on a routine. You can't walk down the high street doing it, can we? But it was just an example that they shouldn't really affect your life. So you can check that video out if you feel the need to. Walking in the woods, changing a stoma bag. So confidence is massive, giving me a huge lift in confidence. One of the main reasons I do this channel is because of the confidence I had, and I wanted to share that and share the kind of the pros and the working lives of having a stoma. It's also really convenient. I can change that when I want to change it. Whereas before, when I had no bowel control, that was emptying out into an adult nappy, then you had to go and deal with that. Whereas a stoma bag, you change it when you're ready, when it's convenient for you to do so. So that's a positive. We don't have to worry about dashing off to a toilet. If I know there's poo in the bag, yeah, we want to get that changed if it's quite full, but there's no rush on that. Certainly not with a colostomy, there's no rush on that. So convenient. Another positive, it's really convenient, and you can, as I already mentioned, change them almost anywhere, so that's positive as well. It can be a conversation piece as a positive. I don't tell my students I've got a colostomy unless Sydney Stoma decides to fart, and then my students will look at me with a kind of bemused look. And then I explain where that came from and what it is, so I don't tell them when I first meet them. And I could probably go through a course with them without telling them, but if Sydney Stoma decides it's going to fart, then I'll explain it, and we can change people's attitudes and people's perceptions by education. And if my students ask questions, I'll always answer them honestly, and I'll say to them, go and have a look at my YouTube channel if you actually want to see it. I'm not going to take my stoma bag off in a classroom environment. So yeah, it can be a conversation piece, and we can certainly start changing people's attitudes towards them. Because yes, as I already mentioned, as part of the negatives, there is still a negative perception of them. So we can do that. Can be a good conversation piece, and we can educate people. So yeah, to me that's a positive. if we can educate people. Helping others is another positive. This is the aim of why I do YouTube. I don't do YouTube for any other reason other than to help people, and it allows me to do that via this platform of helping people, and that's what I want to do. So having a colostomy has allowed me to help other people with colostomies, which is fantastic. There's a great ostomy community out there. It's great to support each other, but it's great to also educate people that have a little understanding of them as well. So that's a positive. And the final positive that I'm going to go with having a colostomy is my childish side, is the wind, the farting. Sometimes it's just hilarious, really. Sometimes Sydney stoma can let out a proper ripper, and the best way to deal with that is laughter. Laughter is an absolutely fantastic way of dealing with things. And if I'm with a group of boys, group of the lads, they find it hysterical anyway. So yeah, it's a positive as well as a negative. It really doesn't bother me unless I'm in an important meeting or somewhere, then it can be a bit embarrassing. But yeah, we'll end on a fart as a positive element of having a colostomy. It can be quite humorous. Well, it is for me anyway, and I know it is for other males. We do find farts funny, even at 40, nearly 45 years of age. We're still kids at heart, really. So yeah, that can also be a positive as well. So there you go, they're my pros and cons, or positive and negatives of life with a stoma. And they're the positives and the negatives for me. You know, certainly we could Google it, or YouTube positives and negatives of a stoma. Every video I mix some words up, don't I? So yeah, go and look at other YouTube reviews on positive and negatives. Yeah, you can do Google searches as well, but they're just mine. So yeah, feel free to go and have a look at other people's. Don't just take my word for it. There's plenty of other great YouTubers out there that talk about the positives and the negatives. So they're my positives and negatives. What are your positive and negatives? Stick a comment in the box. Tell me what yours are. They might be different from mine. You might have more negatives than you do positives. We are all different. But I hope that helps. I hope that helps you a little bit about my positive and negatives of a colostomy. Just want to finish with a couple of things. Firstly, like the video if you liked it. If you want to subscribe to the channel, feel free to do so to keep you updated with more content. And something I want to end with is a statement that I heard from a UK TV personality called Nick Knowles, who said on a TV show called DIY SOS a wonderful statement that I've never heard anywhere else before. And he said, "We can't help everybody, but everyone can help someone." And that really stuck with me, that comment, and it's another reason why I do YouTube videos. I can't help everybody, but I can certainly help someone, and by doing these YouTubes, I hope I can do that for people. So that's my little final thought, if you like. So stay safe, people. Like I say, like the video, click that like button. If you want to subscribe for more content, do so. Any questions, any concerns, anything you want to know, feel free to put those in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer any of those. If there's any videos that you'd like to see, stick something in the comments and I'll see if I can do a video on that for you. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.